Everything was crazy.
At 15, she skyrocketed to fame in Disney's Camp Rock. But it wasn't easy at the top.
I don't even know how to drive yet, but there's grown men following me around with cameras. I was so obsessed with my weight and how I looked in every shot that my eating disorder got really bad.
She was on top of her game when it all began to crumble around her.
When I couldn't even eat 3 meals a day without breaking down and crying, I realized I didn't want to live like that anymore.
And she's not alone. Eating disorders are the 3rd most chronic illness in teen girls. And 1 out of every 4 teens will experience depression before they graduate high school. 1 in 4. So if this is so ordinary, how come no one ever talks about it? I'm on my way to talk with Demi about why it was so important for her to speak up when everyone else is afraid to.
There are still young girls out there, young teenage girls and boys, that have eating disorders that are cutting. And they don't have anyone out there right now to look at and say it's going to be okay.
She's faced her fair share of pressure and emerged a little shaken, but still unbroken. And this is Demi Lovato, Unbroken. I want to know, when you were a kid, what did you dream about?
When I was a kid, I used to want to be the next Shirley Temple. I wanted to be a kid star. I wanted to be the youngest person to ever win a Grammy, or the youngest person to ever win a Oscar or something like that. I just wanted to be a very young, successful person.
How did the acting thing come up?
The acting thing came up when I was about 7 years old, and I auditioned for Barney and Friends. It was amazing. I was so excited to be on a TV show, and I had watched Barney as a kid, so being there in person with the purple dinosaur was amazing. I was living my dream at a young age, and it was so surreal.
So, we hear a lot about young actors, and you said you wanted to be a child star, but maybe something you hadn't considered before was the amount of pressure. Everyone's looking at you, eyes are all on you all the time, and some child stars, they have to struggle with this immense pressure that's put on them. I wonder, how was that when you first started on Barney, if you felt that?
I didn't really feel that because it was an ensemble cast, and it wasn't really, there wasn't ever pressure put on me. It was really easy, actually. I just, I did my scenes during the day, and I did my schoolwork, and then I was done. And then right after that, I went back to public school and lived my life as a normal kid. When people ask me, what was it like as a child star, I don't really consider myself as a child star, because I wasn't, a famous child star.
But then when Disney came along,
yeah,
was there a point then where you did start to feel this pressure? Because Disney is a whole other machine.
I think I definitely started to feel the pressure when I was around 15 years old, which is when I started becoming famous, and it was only because I put the pressure on myself. And it's hard not to when you have paparazzi starting to follow you at 15 years old. I don't even know how to drive yet, but there's grown men following me around with cameras, and those pictures are ending up in magazines that are criticizing you for your clothes and how you look, and you start to put pressure on yourself. And at that age, I was so obsessed with my weight and how I looked in every shot that my eating disorder got really bad, and I put that pressure on myself. And it's really important that people know that it didn't come from anywhere else. But I think that being in the spotlight definitely does contribute to that. It's hard not to put pressure on yourself.
And you were paying attention then to the magazines and all of that stuff and looking at it as opposed to ignoring it.
Definitely. I mean, when you are new to the industry, you want to see yourself in magazines. It's really cool when you first end up in People magazine or Us Weekly when you've been reading it for the past few years of your life. And So when you end up in a magazine, you're like, oh my gosh, this is so cool, I want to see what it says about me. And they never said anything horrible or negative, but the blog sites would, and the negative comments on there would, and that's what really got to me. And I think I didn't know how to deal with it, and it was really hard to deal with the criticism on there.
Do you remember the first thing that you read about yourself that was negative, that you thought was, you know, awful and something someone shouldn't be printing about you?
I think one of the first few things that I read were, she's not pretty enough to be playing opposite of a Jonas brother. Like, she's not good enough. And that really hurt me because I started believing it, and I started comparing myself to all these other young girls and young actresses that could be in my shoes, and I was just very insecure at that age. But the truth is that, you know, I booked the role for a reason, and it was because I was talented, and I worked really hard for it. So if I had just believed that at the time, I think that it might have turned out a little differently. But you know, everything happens for a reason.
So you've talked about being bullied, though, when you were talking about the period between Barney and then Disney. You were in public school. Do you think that being bullied made you more vulnerable then and susceptible to paying attention to that stuff once you became famous?
It's definitely made me more sensitive to negative comments and things like that. I don't just hear like a negative comment and it rolls off my shoulder. Now it does. But even sometimes, like on a day where I'm more sensitive, like it brings me back to that, you know, little 12-year-old girl that had to deal with all of her friends turning on her. And I think anybody that's been bullied can say the same thing. So I think that because I was bullied, it definitely brought me back to that place.
And there was a moment too when media and other people started catching on to maybe that you might have issues or struggles, when there was a photograph publicized with your cuts visible. When that happened, what did you feel? What did you think would happen once people knew?
Well, the first thing that I thought was, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. That was a problem that I had developed around the time that I was being bullied. And when I was stressed and panicked and kind of like freaking out, like I didn't know what to do, that's what I would do. Like I need a release, and that was my release. I thought that people were gonna think that I was just crazy. Like, that's what I thought. And because cutting is something that's so taboo that nobody talks about, because I think it's something that you can physically see on someone, you can physically see their pain, it freaks people out. And they don't know what to do, and they don't know how to talk about it, and it's uncomfortable. So when I was dealing with that, I panicked, like I freaked out, and I started crying, and then I thought my career was over too. And then I noticed it kind of just got swept under the rug like every other news story did, you know, and I thought, oh, well, I kind of got away with it.
Did that make you at all angry? I wonder if you wanted people to find out, and when they didn't pay attention, and then you couldn't get help, was that no? That
definitely didn't happen. What happened was, my secret was blown. Yeah. My cover was blown. People knew my secret, and I was upset that people found out what I was doing. And when I got away with it, I was relieved that I got away with it, and I thought, oh, I can keep doing this. But I was angry that I couldn't do it on my arms anymore, because that's where I was used to doing it. So I had to find other places, which was really sad, but looking back, that's what I went to.
You'd think after almost getting caught, things might get better. Instead, they went from bad to worse.
I got into a fight with my backup dancer, and it turned into a whole mess.
After the break, Demi tells me about the moment she realized she needed help. You're watching Demi Lovato, Unbroken.